it's most likely going to be to the AFC as well. So you're going to notice a lot of teams that have something in common. First up on this list are the Raiders. They could use Terry McLaurin in the worst possible way, right?
Really?
I mean,
Maybe.
could you? Well, they could, and it would be great. Geno Smith throwing to this guy in the same way like they would throw to DK Metcalf, right? Like, let's go. Him.
Okay. Look, first of all, do not start typing bad things about Rich Eisen. We love Rich. Rich is a good guy. He's a good analyst. He's got a good show. I'd argue a top 3 sports show out there. We love him. We root for him. We support him. Run, Rich, run. All that good stuff. This is, though, the cautionary tale of knowing a little versus knowing a lot, and knowing a little about a lot versus knowing a lot about a little. I talk about this a lot in my videos. I am an expert on one team and one team only. That is the team with the floating helmet behind me and the flag behind me, right? Rich Eisen knows a lot, but it's generalized information about all the teams in the National Football League. So when he says the Raiders could use Terry McLaurin and need him in the worst way, well, that just simply isn't true. Not only because of the weaponry that we have, which is probably some of the most underrated weaponry in the National Football League, but because that's going to cost us a first-round pick that we're probably going to use to find the future franchise quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. So it's a very flippant thing to say the Raiders need to trade for Terry McLaurin. I didn't come out and say that. I didn't make a video saying we should trade for him. I put out a poll, just curious what you guys' thoughts are, and I didn't put out a video that said we need to trade for Micah Parsons. Now, if you will take a trip with me down to, what do I want to call this? Information Avenue. That's kind of fun. It's a little Sesame Street vibe. Pop quiz. Can you tell me how many teams had 2 pass catchers on their team that each had at least 1,000 yards? How many teams have done that in 2024? I'll give you 5 seconds to type your answer. Do not look it up. If you get it right, you get a cookie. I don't know. You get something. Okay, time's up. The 2 teams that had 2,000-yard pass catchers last year were the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra and Jameson, and the Las Vegas Raiders, Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Amon-Ra and Jameson had Jared Goff throwing them the football. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, which, by the way, Devontae Adams was still on the Raiders for a couple of those games, had Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder throwing them the football. I'll take it a step further. And by the way, another team that was close to that was the Seattle Seahawks. Jackson Smith and Jigba had over 1,000. DK Metcalf almost had over 1,000. Shout out to Geno Smith last year for throwing the ball to them. Jacoby Myers last year had 1,000 yards and 0 drops. Do you know how many receivers had 1,000 yards and 0 drops? 0 that played for any other team that wasn't the Las Vegas Raiders. Jacoby Myers was the only receiver in the National Football League that had at least 1,000 yards and 0 drops. What people are not understanding about the weaponry of the Las Vegas Raiders is that they already have probably a top, what do you want to say, 6 number 1 option in Brock Bowers. Let's just go through it. You would say that Jamar Chase is better than Brock, right? You would say that Justin Jefferson is better than Brock, right? You would say that, is that it? Like, am I crazy to say that he's already a top 5 number 1 option? That could be the Raider bias seeping in. This is where I don't know that much about any other team. I mean, you can throw your CeeDee Lambs in there. You can throw your Amon-Ra St. Browns in there, right? But Brock Bowers being a rookie, like, we have to take that into account. He did that year 1 with bad quarterback play. Another thing that people aren't mentioning when they talk about the Raiders' weapons and the fact that they should go all in and trading for 30-year-old Terry McLaurin, who I think is a very good wide receiver. He is a number 1. I don't know if he's truly, I'm being completely honest with you, I don't know if he's that much better than Jacoby Myers, and he's not better than Brock Bowers. So you're going to trade at least one number one, right, for a wide receiver who still I don't think would be your number one option. That's where the national media gets this wrong completely. But another thing they're not talking about is the rookies. I'm almost positive that Dante Thornton Jr. has never come out of any of the mouths of the people on the Rich Eisen show. And again, I'm not calling out the Rich Eisen show. I love that show. I watch it daily. But they don't know who that guy is. I mean, they might know who he is. They don't know that he's getting first-team reps, and then he's beating out Trey Tucker and Jack Besh. And then there's also Jack Besh, who hasn't been as good as Dante, but has still shown a lot of promise. And then there's the John Spytek of it all. If we check this out here, this is on Reddit. Starting to see the vision. Let's buy Cook. Crazy this is true. Trayvon Merrick, the safety that we let go. $19.7 million guaranteed. For all that money, we were able to sign for $1.7 million less. We were able to sign Devin White, Jermaine Pratt, Landon Roberts, Jeremy Chin, Eric Stokes. And people can argue that Jeremy Chin on his own is better than Trayvon Merrick. The Raiders are not in the business of spending wads of cash and trading multiple first-round picks on people that aren't going to make a deep, impactful difference on this football team. Micah is an all-world talent. If you want to go all in on the defense, okay, you can convince me of that. But there's no world where I'm trading a first-round pick for Terry McLaurin, especially when, like I said, we might need that pick to get our future franchise quarterback. Now, maybe they think, well, Aiden could be the guy. We don't need that first, or we don't need that first next year, but the year after that, we could always trade back up. John Spytek has shown to be selectively aggressive, trading a third for Geno Smith, trading back in the draft instead of trading up in the draft. And he's hit the wide receiver position hard in the draft, and Dante and Jack are both looking to make big impacts on this team. I haven't even talked about Michael Mayer, who would probably start on more than half the teams in the National Football League. I didn't bring up Trey Tucker, who, when he plays with the quarterback like Aiden O'Connell, shows flashes of actually being able to be an impactful wide receiver. Had over 500 yards last year, which I actually didn't even think was possible for someone like him to have that ability going into games, catching passes from Gardner Minshew, right? And Desmond Ridder. And we've got other things to watch here, especially about the wide receiver room, right? But before we do that, I just want to let you know that we are again making the push to 14,000 subscribers before week 1. And I will say, I've got it on good authority that we are going to have something pretty special happen to this channel once the NFL season starts. A potential sponsor. That's all I'm going to say, but I can't do it without you guys continuing to hit that like button, keep commenting, and make sure you're subscribing. We've been pushing to this 14,000. I didn't think it was possible, but we keep making big leaps. Can we do it in one more month? We have like 330 subscribers to go. I think it's possible if you guys hit that subscribe button. Also, Patreon link in the description below. You get your name at the end of the credits. You get exclusive content. You get ad-free content. You get videos days in advance. You get an executive producer credit, like all these beautiful people right here. John and Carlos joined last week. Will anybody join before the new league year? Let's watch a couple of these videos. First of all, I don't know if this actually happened today, but this was a play that was made by Jack Besh. Shout out to Jack Besh. Look at this play. So he's lining up. I don't know who he's going up against. 36. Someone help me out there. But look at this catch. Boom! Back shoulder, one-handed. I mean, that's the flashes that we wanted to see. That's pretty sick. Then we have another angle of Brock to Geno. Let me just make sure that I am screen sharing. Yes, I am. Another angle of Brock to Geno. Geno to Brock for a touchdown. Like, that's unguardable on 36 again. Somebody please help me out. Who is that? Is that D-Cam? Is that Eric Stokes? I don't know. But I mean, that's unguardable. If you can figure out how to do that on a weekly basis, that's pretty unguardable. And then the last thing I want to talk about, what a nice little picture this is. Gino and Aiden smiling together. Now, you might think this is a nothing burger. Who cares about this picture? Here's what I will say. And I made this a point of emphasis when we traded for Gino, and I'm not talking about is Aiden the future, is Aiden not the future. Regardless of if he's on the roster week 1, I mean, he will be. Regardless of if he's on the roster next year, Aiden O'Connell, that is. I loved trading for Gino, and I would have had Gino ahead of Sam Darnold if I knew Gino was available for this specific reason. And this picture is kind of a microcosm of what I wanted to talk about. Gino clearly has no issue mentoring and ushering the next crop of young talent on this team once he's no longer here. Gino understands he's got a lot of great football left, but he also understands that he's going to be 34 years old when the season starts. Or is he 34 right now? I don't know. I'm not positive. And he knows that for the Raiders to be great, they have to win now and for years to come. And Gino is not going to be on the team much more than 2 or 3 seasons. So when we draft that other rookie, or when they decide maybe Aiden can be that guy, or it's Drew Aller, or it's, Sellers, or any of these guys coming out next year, Gino will have no problem being that guy to mentor the next generation. And I do think that's a valuable asset. Sam Darnold is younger, so it might get weird if you have a quarterback competition or if you draft a young quarterback, right? But Gino has no problem being just a good teammate. And I do appreciate that a lot. Now, let's talk about Lonnie Johnson here, because I think I might have disrespected him, and I saw some people commenting that he was more important than I was initially saying, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, so I'm going to give him his due process here and read a little article about him. This is unfortunate. This is an injury that happened to Lonnie Johnson. This is Ryan McFadden, our guy. Let me just make sure that everything's lined up here. Yep. Okay. Safety Lonnie Johnson Jr. suffered a broken fibula during Saturday's practice at Allegiant Stadium. Johnson will get an MRI to determine if there's additional damage. The 6-year veteran was carted off the field after he collided with defensive end Max Crosby while attempting to tackle running back Raheem Mostert. Johnson, a projected backup, has been competing for a rotational role in the Raiders' secondary. During training camp, he received first-team reps whenever the defense had 3 safeties. Johnson, Isaiah Pulmau would line up in the traditional safety spots where Chin played nickel linebacker. So that does affect us more than I was giving credit for. The 29-year-old Johnson signed a 1-year deal with the Raiders this offseason. He and Chin are among the additions at safety following the departures of Murray and Epps. Las Vegas also signed Jamal Adams, who was converted into a weak side linebacker. Johnson, a second-round pick by the Houston Texans in 2019, has played for 5 teams, 83 games. He collected 199 tackles, 15 passes defended, and 4 interceptions. So, look, he wasn't a starter, like I said, but he was clearly playing more when we were throwing Jeremy Chin at that nickel position. Clearly, that's not going to be the case now unless they go Trey Taylor as that second safety. I don't know how long a broken fibula lasts. Someone help me out on that. I'm sure someone in the comments will know that. It's an unfortunate injury. I wish him all the best. And you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Obviously, it would be way worse to have somebody like a Brock Bowers go down, knock on wood. But you don't want anyone to get hurt, and he clearly was going to be more of a rotational impact player than I was initially saying. So I wanted to just right that wrong. I had some people comment that, and I will admit when I am wrong. So, all that to say, national media, if you're watching, Rich, if you're watching, don't think you are, but if you are, shout out Dante Thorne and Jack Besh on the show next time. Shout out Jacoby Myers. Shout out the idea that the Raiders are one of 2 teams, the other team was 15-2, that had 2,000-yard pass catchers. Acknowledge the idea that we have Ashton Gentine, Raheem Mostert, and Michael Mayer. Trey Tucker can make some plays. Dante looks incredible, and Jack is making one-handed back shoulder catches. And shout out that the 1,000-yard receivers last year were doing it with bad quarterback play. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that we don't need to add another weapon, that we have the weapons capable of being a top 10 offense. Like I said before, shout out to my $5 and $10 patrons who will be the next to join. Hit that like button, comment away, and please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. We're making that push to 14,000. Can we get there? I love you guys, and I will see you next time.